A lot of people are wondering about the idea of us being helped or saved by benevolent extraterrestrials. In this video, I'm going to shed some light on that topic. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. So, where are those good extraterrestrials, and why aren't they showing up here to put a stop to this madness? I had a conversation the other day with one of the beings I channel in Telstar, whose name is John. He told me some very interesting things that help to clarify our situation when it comes to extraterrestrials and how their presence relates to us here on Earth. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. But first, I want to share this personal story with you. Now, a lot of you know that I got here as a walk-in, and the other day I was thinking about how different things felt on this planet when I first arrived here. I was not used to being on a planet that was completely isolated and locked away from the normal extraterrestrial universe like this one is. I thought it was so weird not to see any spaceships or any beings who originate from off this planet. So I found myself looking for them in the sky and wondering, why was there no one there? I mean, like, where is everybody? See, at the time, I was not yet fully awakened to what is going on here. The thing is that I was very open to extraterrestrial connections because that's what I felt used to. Then I had this very bizarre experience that was really intense. One day I was at a restaurant having lunch with a group of people in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. I was introduced to a man there who said he was an extraterrestrial from Sirius. He was sitting directly across from me and he was talking all about this secret project that he and some other corporate interests were working on in the Canary Islands. It was some kind of a high technology thing having to do with communication, but that's really all I remember. I just remember it was something that nobody knew about and was well beyond what we're all aware of at the time. Now, here's what's really weird. I don't have any connected memory about this guy after that. And I'll tell you why that's very, very strange. In what seemed like a few days later, I have a memory that only starts with being with this guy in his car and him driving down the street toward my home. He pulled up in the driveway and I got out, and then he drove off. I literally have no idea why I was in his car, where we were, or how I got there. I have no memory whatsoever of anything except for that little slice of time being in his car. Prior to that, it's a total blank. It's like there's nothing there. Now that night, something really bizarre happened, and I knew it had everything to do with this guy. It was really, really late. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna guess around 2 a.m., something in that part of the night, and the phone rang. My husband at the time, who was the husband of the person who was here before I walked in, and I were asleep. So one of us got up and answered the phone, and it was weird. There were just a whole bunch of these weird electronic sounds, and there was no voice. There was no person there. And then we heard this really weird noise on the side of the house. It sounded like this gigantic truck or a motor idling, but it sounded like something really big, and it was like on the side of the house. It wasn't in the road at all. It was more on the side, like in between our house and the neighbor's house. Then the phone rang again. We picked it up and it was the same strange electronic sounds coming through the phone. We were really confused. I mean, what is going on here? And then we just ended up going back to sleep, or going back to bed, I should say. And then he just kind of passed out. It was almost like he was made unconscious. At that same moment, this whole row of these alien beings came right through the wall that was facing the bed. And they had all of their attention trained on me. Everything changed in the room. It was almost like the molecules of the physical reality it was almost like there was this distortion and everything looked like wavy lines. And they had this incredible, like, sucking kind of an energy that was being aimed toward me. And one of them actually got up on the bed and was focused on my consciousness, on me, almost trying to suck me out. I don't know if they were trying to suck me out of my body, but it was like, it was very clear to me what they wanted. They wanted me, they knew that I was here with a purpose, that I was here with a mission, and they wanted me working for them. Well, obviously they were no good because look at their approach, right? But it was almost like they were trying to forcibly suction me over to their side so that I would work for them. Now, I knew this entire time that they were not going to succeed because there was no way I was going to do that. But honestly, you guys, this was the most powerful suction kind of energy I could ever imagine. It was completely weird. So all of this is happening very, very fast. Simultaneous to all of this, John, who's the being I just mentioned to you all at the beginning of this video, and Archangel Michael they came into the room and they started walking toward me, and they were saying something to me, but I couldn't hear them because everything was so garbled, like their voices were garbled, so I couldn't understand what they were saying. But I knew to just focus on them, and that was all I could do, was focus on them and use my will, that like there's no way I'm going with these characters because they're like bad news, right? So this went on for a little while. I don't even think it was that long, but I really didn't have a real sense of time with this intense suction and this whole weird distortion and this weird energy vibration that was completely intense. And then all of a sudden it stopped and they left. They gave up. They just gave up and left. And after that, I just passed out. I think I was probably completely exhausted. Now, the next morning when I woke up, John was sitting by the side of the bed like he'd been waiting for me. So he looked right at me, and he had this beautiful necklace around his neck with this incredible medallion at the end. It was probably about, I don't know, this big. And it was just encrusted with these amazing stones that was like some kind of coating or something. Anyway, he held this up and he said, "You see this? This means I know what I'm doing." Now, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but I often get they will communicate a sentence to me and I'll get this whole other message along with it that maybe is not something that can be said in English, but I knew that I knew what he meant. So after he said that, he said, "Don't talk to anyone who approaches you anymore." In other words, if any other extraterrestrials or anything of this nature ever approaches me, he said, do not talk to them. He said, instead, send them to me first, meaning send them to John. He said, if they're okay, I will let you know. So that was kind of obviously a good idea after that experience, right? And the other thing he said to me that was so interesting, he said, you don't have your wits about you here. And what he meant was, being here on planet Earth, incarnate in a body, I didn't have the ability to see and discern and know what I might know somewhere else, because, you know, these bodies and these senses and everything that goes on here really, really limits our capabilities. Now, this turned out to be a very fortunate suggestion from John, because not long after that, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to kind of a rural area. One night, I think it was around 10 o'clock or so, these three entities showed up outside of our house. I think they were like 40 or 50 feet away. I'm not really sure, because there was, you know, a fair amount of land around everyone's homes in that area. And they looked like standing up alligator people. I mean, like alligators who were standing up. And they said they wanted to talk to me. Fortunately, I had had this conversation with John prior to, so I told them, no, I wasn't going to talk to them. They needed to go talk to John. And needless to say, they never returned. And it actually wasn't until a little while after that that I became aware of the reptilian presence on this planet. So why am I sharing these stories with you? Because I want you to understand that it really is a mixed bag on this planet. It's very difficult to know who and what you're dealing with from where we sit incarnated on this earth. Now, if you watched any of my videos, my earlier videos about my entire story, then you know that that story includes a very powerful and positive extraterrestrial experience. So I'm not saying, oh, it's all bad. I'm just truly saying it really is a mixture here. Now, I want to share with you some of what John talked to me about extraterrestrial contact just the other day. The first thing to recognize is that we are living in a universe that is teeming with life. We are not alone. The controllers have lied to us about this so that we would think that what they give us is all there is. Now, given this fact, there are all kinds of extraterrestrial integrations happening with Earth. It's just that they're not all good. Some are benign, some are benevolent, and some are downright evil. He said that, of course, the universe is awash with life of every kind and at every vibrational level imaginable. He said that the variations of different dimensions are endless. He said it's just like the variations in the light of the sun as it moves from day to night and from night to day. But here's what he said is important. If people are interested in extraterrestrial help, they need to be very clear about what type of energy they resonate with. And that can only be determined by their state of consciousness and by the condition of their energy. He said that help does not automatically come just because the inhabitants of any given planet are at a very low state of consciousness. He said that's not how it works. He said it should be kind of obvious because we haven't seen it work that way here on this planet either. I mean, this planet has been suffering from violence, war, torture, suffering, poverty, starvation, you name it, for thousands of years, and it is still going on. Now, he went on to say more, but first he wanted to start by talking about the current conditions on this planet in a very general way. He said that Earth is currently a part of a much larger slave system that was put in place eons ago. This network of slavery and slave trafficking extends far beyond this planet and is actually interdimensional in nature. He said that what you have are a lot of parasitic entities and energies feeding on life itself in multiple forms. Now, he said that there are forces who are trying to put a stop to all of this. However, at a much larger scale, these efforts tend to take on a territorial warlike effort where multiple battles ensue and various deals are made among the near infinite number of players at these lower levels of duality. He said if you want to understand this in simple terms, it's not a far cry from what we see happening right here on Earth. It's just more of the same happening at an expanded level of space territory. It's all about winning and losing and who is in charge. He said that if people want to find themselves in resonance with such things, they are, of course, welcome to do so. The only thing to be aware of is that the emphasis is more on winning and losing rather than on evolution. So at some point in the history of one's galactic and intergalactic journey, a person has to decide what they are really interested in. If you are interested in war and in who wins and who loses, you can live inside of that territory for what we perceive as millions and millions of Earth years. That's because at a certain level of consciousness, that's all that goes on. He said that duality is always fraught with good and evil and with mixed perceptions of who's who in the galaxy. So in regard to the people on Earth, everyone is at a different place in terms of their evolutionary journey through the cosmos. He said it's a mistake to assume that everyone here is on the same page just because we share a planet together. It's the belief that everyone is on the same page that leads to a subsequent belief that everyone should be uniformly saved. He said that has never actually happened, and it's not going to happen now either. He said you can see that for yourself if you just look around. There is an incredibly wide range of experiences on this Earth, from people who live in the absolute dregs of society all the way to those who live in relative comfort. So he wanted to give a broader level of understanding about how to look at all of this from an evolutionary perspective. He said there is war and then there is evolution. And those are two very different things. He said it is perfectly fine to be aligned with war and with who wins and who loses in this galaxy. That is really just a matter of personal preference. But he also said that there's no end to that type of saga in a dualistic universe. So I want to share with you the two basic forms of consciousness that John told me about when it comes to the type of extraterrestrials that one can choose to resonate with. Now, there are more than two, of course, but this is what is most relevant to our situation right now. If you are still bought into duality and see it as a good thing, then you are likely to resonate with any extraterrestrials who are also on that same page. On the positive side of such extraterrestrials, you are talking about those who want to fight for the good and vanquish the bad. Now, John said there is nothing wrong with this choice, and it's sometimes necessary to create a window of opportunity for people to get some oxygen and some space to make some new and better decisions in their cosmic journey of life. But he said in the bigger picture, there is ultimately no end to this because it's still based on war and fighting and duality. It's still based on winners and losers. He said it's fine for a person or a civilization to stay there for as long as they want to, but eventually on that journey, people do tend to get tired and want something better. So once you get tired of war and fighting, even if it's for a good galactic cause, you will likely begin to seek something higher, something closer to the truth of how this universe was originally meant to operate. That's when you will start to resonate with a very different type of extraterrestrial being. You will begin to attract a type of extraterrestrial that has gone beyond duality and fighting. He said there is an entire universe of extraterrestrial, other dimensional life that has no interest whatsoever in war or duality. These are extraterrestrials who are only about one thing, and that is about evolution to higher and higher states of consciousness where war and duality don't even exist. Now, in this case, you will have signaled to the universal mind that you are also ready to evolve out of this as well. Your consciousness will begin to change, and you will find it easier to focus on a different end result than on who wins and who loses. And this is the kind of transformation that will really move this planet to an entirely new level. But here's an issue that we need to understand. These extraterrestrials cannot physically enter into Earth's dimension of reality. Earth's current dimension of reality is far too narrow and energetically slim to accommodate the depth of energy and power of these higher beings. Now, he also emphasized that higher does not mean better. It just means different. In the true universe of omnipresent love and oneness, all are entirely equal. It's really just a matter of having made different choices. Now, I totally understand what he means about these beings being unable to enter into our physical dimension. I have seen this every time I see any of the beings in Telstar who I channel. The reason that I can see Telstar or the beings in Telstar is because I can see interdimensionally. So I can see them in their dimension while being in this dimension at the same time. And that's how it is that we can have these conversations together. They are actually so much more real and real looking than we are. For example, if one of them is in the room talking to me, the whole room by comparison just looks really faint and really dim. It's not like anything in the room changes, it's just relatively speaking. And I'm going to add something here that I think is interesting about that. It's because in those higher realms of being, everything is made of light. It's just power and light, and it's indescribable. It's completely indescribable. And I think what we have here in this dimension is we have reflected light, and that's a whole other topic, but we don't have a lot of, this dimension doesn't work in the same way as reality does in these much higher dimensions. So you can really see the contrast between a reality of tremendous substance and light and the reality that we experience here, which has a much lower vibration and a much weaker energy. So now let me share with you the overall point that John was making about extraterrestrial intervention. Basically, you can think of our universe as a giant cosmic ecosystem of life. Now, in this giant ecosystem of life, there are varying degrees of evolution. Our particular universe currently has a problem with duality and what we call the source of fear. This is not natural and shouldn't exist at all. Therefore, our entire universe is in a process of evolving out of this and restoring itself back into its natural state of beauty, of oneness, and of love. You can think of the whole point of evolution as being a process of healing from division and separation. You can think of it as the process of total restoration to oneness and unconditional love. So now let's talk about where planet Earth is in that process. We are still a long ways away from a total healing and from living at much higher levels of consciousness. You can see this by the level of violence, pain, suffering, and death that exists here and has persisted for thousands of years. Now, eventually this will all be healed. That is a certainty. So it's really a matter of how you want to approach the process. So when it comes to extraterrestrial intervention, there are basically two camps. There are those who desire for the good extraterrestrials to vanquish the bad ones and free the Earth from its chains of domination and slavery. But the only problem with this is that you have a multitude of humans who continue to desire slavery and who would rather be owned by someone in charge who will tell them what to do. And then you have others who are likely much farther along on their cosmic journey, who have been through this time and time again in other parts of the universe, and who have just had enough. These are the people who have realized at a soul level that there is no end to winners and losers and to how you play the game. And these are the people who are truly ready to transition into a state of conscious evolution. And that is an entirely different resonating level of consciousness than those who only hope for a win over the bad ones. It also attracts a very different type of extraterrestrial. So it's extremely problematic to think that everyone can be saved all at once. So John's main point was to let people know that they have a choice. It's not so much a matter of what you choose, as it is a matter of knowing that you actually have a choice. It all comes down to how you feel about duality. If you need more time here, then that is fine. And if you feel like you are done, then it's fine to move on as well. There is no judgment at the higher realms. I think there will always be good extraterrestrials at various stages in their own evolution who will do whatever they can under the circumstances to assist us. But it mostly depends upon the conditions of our own consciousness and what it is that truly matters to us as individuals and also as a planetary civilization. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it thought-provoking. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would find this interesting. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here every Tuesday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you loads of love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.